Welcome back to the Titanium Hangar. This is Mike, and I'm coming at you with a quick video about a question that I have. So, what do you like better, the 6-inch or the 3 3/4 inch? What scale is your preference? So, I'm going to talk about a few things. First of all, I'm going to talk about the 3 3/4 inch size and the pluses and minuses to having that size, the 6-inch size, pluses and minuses to having that size. Throw in a little bit of talk about the Elite, and then discuss my plans or expectations for the future. So first of all, the 3 3/4 inch size figures, they have a smaller scale so that they can ride in their vehicles, and there's a bit of a charm to it. And of course, since I've got the vintage figures shown here, since that's what the majority of the collector base is after, is the vintage figures. And I know they had a 12-inch line that just died quick after the 3 3/4 inch was popular. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that they have the vehicles. So the vehicles are there. They fit in the vehicles. You can put them on your shelf. You can put them in a kid's room. So that's a big part of it. So also with that, the 3 3/4 inch, you can buy them at a cheaper price point, and then 3 3/4 inch can have them more of them on a shelf in a smaller space. So 3 3/4 inch also is just what us old school collectors such as myself think of when we think of Star Wars figures and G.I. Joe and all those. And that's the scale that we prefer if you're looking at old school collectors.
I I prefer the 6-inch.
So with the 6-inch figures, you get a little bit more articulation, you get a little more detail. It's a little bit of an improvement in some cases on that. But I personally still like the 3 3/4 inch, the charm of it. But I do appreciate some of the reality, the realness that's getting instilled in these guys. So the majority of the loose figures that are 6-inch are my son's. I don't really open my 6-inch figures. I don't play with them and display them, and I actually enjoy messing around with his for a little bit, and then let him do whatever he does with them. So with the 6-inch, I want to talk a little bit about some of the vehicles. First of all, you've got the speeder bike, and it's not a whole lot bigger on the 6-inch. My son has one, but can't find it right now. We did find a Scout Trooper over here, and we're able to do a size comparison with the Scout Trooper and a vintage Trooper. But the speeder bike, I mean, it's really cool. It's small. It doesn't have the blow-up feature that the vintage one did. The next vehicle I want to talk about is this Land Speeder, which came out this year, 2017, and it's a really good representation. I like it. Price point I thought was a little high, and so did the rest of the entire market, and that's the first time I've seen a Black Series item just wholesale discounted across the board, so that's when we picked ours up. But if you look at it, you know, the detailing here versus the detailing in here with a sticker. There's a big difference. So if you look at that, you see a massive difference. And I actually appreciate real molded details and then the actual paint apps versus just a sticker. And then, of course, the figure. They improved on the Luke that's been out at retail for a while already. This kind of weird bottom to give it a hovering effect. I don't know. Kind of do like the charm of the vintage stuff. So I mean, there's kind of some give and take there. Obviously, the size and scale of the TIE Fighter, it's just, thing is huge, huge, and that starts giving you some concern about the limitation of vehicles that can actually be mass produced and what the price point would be on these. So if you look at the cockpit in here and you see the detail, it's actually molded detail. I don't know how well that's showing up on camera, but it looks amazing. And you get down here, you've got just like a bucket seat and a sticker. So just the details are extremely important when it comes to something like this. It's also getting to the price point. This thing was MSRP, the big one, the 6-inch version, at $169, and I think more sold at $50 than $169, and that's just the way it is. And so the same thing, they're trying to figure out what scale, what figures can we make at what price point. And of course, I said if I want my TIE Fighter to have actually the real TIE Fighter pilot, not the one that comes with it. So I picked one of these guys up loose for a pretty good price, and it was a good deal. They actually have what's the name of that character on the new game? Iden Verso?
Iden Versio.
Iden Versio with a red. This paint here is red. You can get it at GameStop right now for like $22.99 plus tax. So the same mold and everything. So next thing I want to talk about, and there's a couple of variations here, is the Elite series. Now we're talking about what size do you like the best, what scale do you like the best, and I really think that the Elite series, some of the characters in the Elite series would scale very well, and some are just too big. This R2-D2 looks nice, and he's made of metal, and I think that the weight behind this guy, I think that a droid should be made of metal, and that's why I am a big fan of these. And I've got the Elite series versions, and I think C-3PO is actually right on, and that's the red arm one. I just painted the arm gold, and it looks good. I think that the Black Series version is a little too small, and that's been a complaint since it was released 4 years ago or whatever. And this one here's a little too big, so we need something right in the middle. And right in the middle, whether they go with Elite or Black Series, this one needs to be a little bit bigger, that one needs to be a little smaller, and I'd like all of these parts to be integrated inside of it. That would be the perfect R2-D2. So next I'd like to talk about Elite versus Black Series Boba Fett. And I think that the Elite Boba Fett looks miles better if you just look at the two and compare them. This guy has all of this really good detail. There's some detail, but it's paint app detail. This is actually molded in detail. Now, getting to my falling streak again, I think that Black Series is actually a little bit more posable. And I think that's what people like about it. Black Series is also a little bit, it's just easier to handle. But in the end, I like the look of Elite. I think Elite really, it spells out the name there. They're like $6 or $7 more expensive, but all these Elites end up going on clearance for like $6 down the road. So, except for I think Boba Fett, I had to pay $20, and I think I paid like $40 on the secondary market for my Grievous. Now that Grievous is hard to get, and they didn't make a Black Series Grievous. Okay, so next I want to talk about future vehicles that could be made in this line at a reasonable price, and we're talking along the lines of the X-Wing hasn't been made yet, the Snowspeeder hasn't been made, and neither has the A-Wing. Now, those are all just very relevant vehicles that could be made in the 6-inch line. They could be at the $40 price point, in my opinion, which is what the Landspeeder should have been. So you kind of put in this Landspeeder here, and obviously he's about the same size as the 3 3/4 inch ones. So these guys will be a little bit bigger, and they're probably going to charge like $89.99 or some ridiculous nonsense. But what would one of these look like in this 6-inch scale? So you look at this scale, and it's more than twice the size. It's like 3 times the size, what it feels like. What would they look like? And I actually have kind of a proof of concept of what the X-Wing would look like. So this is the best comparison, I would think, for 6-inch. And the reason for that is because, not because it knocks Boba Fett down, but I didn't attach the other wing to it. And this is like a size comparison deal. And this is one of those like real cheap ones that the cockpit doesn't open. I don't really know why they made it, but I got one because it made some sounds. So I want to kind of point out a few things. Now this one here is just the Sam's version. Got it when it was on sale, or wouldn't have bought it at all because the cockpit doesn't open. But kind of want to show you how Luke would look fitting in there. Of course, I don't have that extremely expensive. What is it? The X-wing fighter, Luke. I actually saw him in the store for like $20 and passed on him because I was like, what do I need these 6-inch figures for back in the day? Because I'm a vintage collector. But that's where I think this is actually the exact size it would be, like give or take an inch or two. So, but all the vehicles would scale up to this size. So you look at how small this guy is, he'd be right on par with that size. So, how much they're going to charge? Well, they'll charge you everything they can, tell you the truth. So lastly, what I would do if I was in charge of Hasbro, in charge of the Star Wars division, would start putting out vehicles that catered to both the 3 3/4 inch and the 6-inch. So you could make this big enough at probably $150 price point that it would accommodate some 6-inch figures, and you'd have the seats in a place and position to where that would fit both. And I really think that making the same size peg holes going forward for their feet, that you could really make this into like a sandcrawler that served both. You think how big this thing is, and you don't need to go for that $170 price point, $149.99, and you put out something like this, it would sell. I mean, that's what I would do. That makes a little bit too much sense. Maybe it's a little bit too far out there for people to understand, but it would be vehicles that could cater to both. I mean, obviously, when we had this back in 1979, it was far underscaled. So anyhow you slice it, one's going to be underscaled, one's going to be overscaled, and that's just the way it is. So looking at how you do all this great stuff, and then putting in all of the fun features that you can do today that we couldn't do back then. So, but anyway, this is Mike, Tydarium Hanger. Like, subscribe, tell me what you think, and Tydarium Hanger out.